Hey, what's up, everybody?
Hello again.
Yeah, so we're back with another edition of the Zod and Drea podcast, and we got a great guest for you today.
Well, really phenomenal guest, I should say.
Yeah, we like him.
Yeah, we like him a lot.
He's a cool dude.
And who's here today?
We got Mark Robert Gordon.
Get used to that name.
Mark Robert
Gordon.
Yeah. Anyway, Mark is here to. We're going to discuss some voting issues, and we're also going to talk about the reason why he's here as well. So it's going to be really a good conversation that we think that's also going to be informative for you.
Yeah, we're just glad to have him here today to kind of share with you his ideas, what he is running for, and what he wants to see to make an impact in a positive way for this community. And that's what we're about.
We're always about that. So in case you haven't seen some of the things that we've been working on, make sure you go to zodanddrea.com because we have a whole bunch of things that we've been working on for this site and also some other sites as Brent and Andrea is concerned. So we want to make sure that everybody here in the Arizona, districts are well informed with what's going on in our political system as well as some of the people that are involved in it. So this is going to be a really important podcast for you to check out and also get used to the name Mark Robert Gordon, of course. I'm going to start calling myself Anthony just because my middle name is anyway.
Oh, Lord, you're just giving all your government name out.
Anyway. Don't be doing that to me. Anyway, without further ado, let us introduce Mark Robert Gordon. What is going on, buddy?
How are you?
I am good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me here.
No, thanks for coming through because, welcome to the red couch, where it all happens.
It's better than the casting couch, right?
Yeah, way better. Yeah, and cleaner.
It's not the Weinstein.
So, could you give us a little intro about who you are and what you're doing here?
Oh, that's going to take a while. That sounds like a therapist question. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm an Arizona native. I am from Central Phoenix. I went to the public schools here in Central Phoenix, grade school and high school. I've been working in two different fields. I have a career in entertainment. I had a career as a New York stage actor for a long time, ran an off-Broadway company, did some TV and film work as well. And then I had this other career, which was my legal and political career. I was advising people in politics for years. I started when I was a kid here, growing up, volunteering on campaigns and making sure that the system worked for people and got involved because there were issues that mattered. And if people are silent, then nothing happens. So you got to get involved, and you got to be involved. So I learned that at an early age, and I kept that on. And what I've been doing for a career related to that, I'm a lawyer. I do federal election protection and voting rights work. And I do voting rights work around the country, making sure that people's right to vote is protected, making sure that the system is working well for people, making sure that best practices are being performed by states and by counties. Just making sure that everyone's right to vote is there. My dad was disabled. He had trouble voting, leaving the house in the 80s here growing up, and people used to come to help him vote because he couldn't make it out of the house to the polls sometimes.
That's cool.
Yeah. And today that's a crime in Arizona.
Right.
That's where we're at right now. Mm-hmm. So these are big challenges. In our lifetimes, we haven't seen this kind of challenge like we're seeing today. You think back to the 60s, the Voting Rights Act, you figure that's when it all came together, and finally, we're past that. We're far from past that.
Yeah.
It's pretty dangerous times here for voting rights, so that's what I do.
And see, people don't understand the importance of voting and the impact it has, and I'm glad you brought some of those things up, such as, disabilities. It's funny how the able-bodied stop thinking about those who aren't and how they're able to get to the polls, how they're able to vote, and just some of the other things legally that should be afforded to them. In your opinion, what do you think that you would want to happen legally? I mean, speaking as a lawyer, for that to happen.
Yeah, it's more than just a lawyer. Just as a concept, the one thing about this country now, or what we should be striving for, is that everyone is treated equally, right? And everyone has that one thing in common, no matter who they are, no matter where they're from, no matter what they look like, no matter what their demographic is, y'all have one vote.
Yeah.
And it needs to be respected across the board. And the only way to do that is to make sure that the right to vote is always paramount. And then wherever the chips fall after that, so be it. At least everyone's then expressed themselves. So election officials anywhere should be working to make sure that every day their one prime directive, the one thing they should be paying attention to, is trying to make it easier for people to legitimately access the franchise and vote. Every barrier needs to be brought down. So, things I've been talking about for years, automatic voter registration, universal mail-in balloting, ending where you have to go to a specific polling site that may not be convenient to where you work or where you have to pick up your kids or anything else. Everything that should be done should be done.
Do you happen to, and this may be a silly question, but for those that aren't familiar with what's going on with voting rights in the country, are you seeing any trends, any alarming trends that we should know about regarding the impact of our voting rights?
Yeah, that's a great question, because that's what's going on right now. There are groups out there that want to pick their electorate and make it more difficult for people to vote, because not really the kind of vote that they want coming in on election day, right? So they're picking their voters rather than the voters picking the elected.
Right.
And that needs to stop. It's all of these think tanks that get control of. Arizona's a big petri dish here. Our legislature gets all these things written by these out-of-state groups, interest groups, that are trying to come up with new and very creative and very hostile ways to make it more difficult for certain types of people to vote. And the opposite, as I said before, should be true. Election officials should be, as their prime directive, making it easier to vote in every instance. All these things. Why do you have to register to vote? Why do you have to register? They know where to do it. What happened to Motor Voter, right? Where you can go to any voter. Remember that? And I know we're dating ourselves. I shouldn't have said that. But, it's supposed to be about making it easier and increasing participation, not making it more difficult. And, I just think these policies are getting in the way. And here in Arizona, they've done something very creative now. You have these initiatives and referenda, and that's basically overturning what the legislature is doing. Or it's doing something where the legislature hasn't been able to do its job to get certain reforms done, so it's up to citizens to be able to come up with things.
All the props that are
right? All the propositions. Well, why is it that it is this strict standard you have to keep within a certain box that's very narrow when you're signing, right, on those? They make it an inordinate amount of signatures that you need to get something on the ballot.
Right.
But if they're up for re-election, it's easy. You can go outside the lines.
Yeah, right.
You don't need as many signatures, right? Because they're in control. It's just, it's the same with everything. I talk about campaign finance reform because that's also regulated by the same office that regulates regulations, Secretary of State's office. Well, what you're doing in campaign finance is you're regulating how much money and from whom people who are in politics and in office get money. Well, the interesting thing in this state, Arizona, is that the state legislature has made it such that they don't need to report who they're getting money from for an entire year in advance of the election year. So if they're going to run for an office like now in 2018, but they were in office in 2017, they could be receiving their funds from groups that they're voting on, bills related to those groups while in the legislature for an entire year before having to report it to the public.
Wow.
It breeds corruption that way, or at least the appearance of it, right? Federal candidates don't have to do that. For Congress, you have to report as soon as you file. You have to start reporting. Not here in the state legislature.
That's
now,
scary.
is that because, now, in your opinion, is that because one party is trying to keep control of something? Because if it happens that another side winds up doing that, do you think that the rules will wind up changing somehow, or do you feel that it's just the entire political system in general?
I like to be as bipartisan as I can. I definitely have my donkey stripes, but
I should say, as trends go.
I'm a Democrat. But I want to be bipartisan in talking about this. Both parties are at fault.
Okay.
I think that it is right now. There's one party in this state that we're in that controls everything, and they've controlled everything for a long time. My lifetime, we've never controlled the state House of Representatives ever.
Wow.
State Senate, I think it was once that we had a tie. And occasionally there's been governors, and it's hard to get balance so it's one party rule. But, look, there's Democrats that take money from groups that they shouldn't be taking money from, and they will vote for those, on bills relating to, and, when you have to rely on money and this level of money to win office, you do become beholden to people, and it really does corrupt the system, and you're already dealing with something that already looked corrupt, as we discussed before. Now it gets even more corrupt because you're beholden to this money and these money sources.
Right. You're no longer an employee of the people. You're now a corporate employee.
Yeah, that's just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's just wrong. I'll give you an example if I could.
Yeah, sure.
So we have a public utility here, the biggest public utility.
We've heard.
Right? Okay. So that utility has bought off the regulatory body which regulates them, the Corporation Commission here in Arizona. Right, we're talking APS. And they're under federal, and one of the commissioners under federal, or former commissioner under federal indictment. Right, that's still being investigated. Meanwhile, they've also donated across the board, both parties, to make sure that they've gotten people in the legislature that are going to vote with them. They're setting the regulations, and they bought off the people that are regulating them. And, look, there's Democrats who have taken it just as well as Republicans who have taken their money. Just as in the legislature, the current Secretary of State, the governor's office, all that. So, there's somebody that is very high up in our side of the aisle that took a walk on a vote for to find that organization, that company. Why did they take a walk? Meaning they didn't vote. They didn't vote yes. They didn't vote no.
Right.
They just no voting. And that person's in leadership. So what's that all about? It just doesn't look good. Even if there was no ill intent there, it doesn't look good.
Itself is really bad.
I think it's everything. Yeah.
Well, we got about a minute left.
Mm-hmm.
I guess what we want to do is I want to talk about the position that you're going to be running for. We're going to talk about in the next segment and go a little bit into more detail about that, as well as who you are here in Arizona. I'd love to know about some of your law offices, but especially, that I heard that Mark was on Guiding Light.
Hey.
We might not have to bring up the Guiding Light thing, but if you can for like 30 seconds, just tell us what that was about, because you lived in New York to do that?
I did. I was in law school. I grew up as an actor here. I knew I was an actor. I got to law school. Finally, I was in New York, and I'm like, all right, the time is now. And I went out on this open call audition. It was announced on the radio. There was lines down the block. It came down to me and another guy, and the other guy got it. And that was my first thing. So I knew, okay, I really do have talent. This is New York.
Yeah. And
I could do it. And I had this career in stage, primarily in theater in New York. I run an off-Broadway theater company still. To this day, started in '94 with a bunch of friends, and it's what I do. So anyway, they ended up casting me in a very small recurring role.
Hey, that's all I need. That's all I need to know.
Years.
But we're gonna be right back with Mark, because we're gonna ask him about Secretary of State. Yeah, do not take off. Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Zod,
And I'm Drea.
and we want you to check out the Zod and Drea podcast every Tuesday.
Where can everybody find us at?
You can always check us out on www.zodanddrea.com.
Where else?
You can always check us out also on Facebook at Zod and Drea.
Instagram?
Zod and Drea.
Snapchat?
Zod and Drea.
YouTube?
Zod and Drea.
I see a pattern.
I see a pattern. So if you haven't caught that, catch us at Zod and Drea on all the social networks. But also, make sure you subscribe to the Zod and Drea podcast. Where?
At zodanddrea.com.
And also on YouTube and iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and iHeartRadio. We're coming for you.
Let us know what you think. And if you want to be a guest, reach out to us.
and put all of your input into whatever our topics are for the week. So we hope to check you out and see you there.
Bye.
All right, we're back.
Did you miss us?
That's what we do. All right, so you ready?
Yes, let's continue this.
All right,
I'm
all right.
intrigued.
All right, you just mentioned something, and now I'm intrigued about it. So you mentioned
Guiding light. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I don't
off
want to
camera,
talk about
off
it
camera
anymore. I
you
don't
did.
want to talk about it.
But you spoke about election protection
Yeah, let's talk
and
about
something about Georgia.
Mhm.
So this sounds either loyally or something, but with that smile, I just know
Well,
it's going to be
a little
some
bit.
good
So-
stuff. So let us know.
The question before was, what kind of challenges are there out there, and is voting rights really still an issue? And here's the example. There was a U.S. Supreme Court decision in 2013 called Shelby County v. Holder. And it went all the way up to the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, in a 5-4 decision. They said that Shelby County, which is outside, it's the Birmingham area, they said Shelby County was being held under the Voting Rights Act to federal pre-clearance standards, meaning everything that could possibly touch elections had to be put before the Justice Department or before the courts so that it's approved because Shelby County, Alabama, had an egregious history of discrimination. And Alabama wasn't alone. It was 7 former states of the former Confederacy, Alaska and Arizona.
Alaska
And Arizona, which is even worse.
Yeah.
Right, which is even worse. So, this is real serious discrimination over decades for these states and some scattered counties around the country. Well, Supreme Court looked at this and they said the data that was being used to show discrimination in 2013 was too old, or 2010 when the lawsuit began was too old because it was data from the 1980s to show that there was still discrimination in Alabama in terms of elections. Okay, so what happened is every jurisdiction, including Arizona, that was formerly under federal pre-clearance guidelines, they were no longer held to those guidelines until the new data was presented. So that left all these states up to their own devices. Well, Alabama created this voter ID law that required you to get a specific voter ID card issued by the DMV, the Motor Vehicle Department, there. Except the funny thing is they claimed in the legislature there now, because they didn't have to go to the federal government for pre-clearance on anything, the legislature there claimed that the federal, they were broke, they needed to make budget cutbacks, and therefore they needed to close some of those DMV offices. Guess which type of counties
I wonder
that were affected by that? Counties with 75% or higher African American population across the board had those offices closed before the 2000, I think it was 16 election, and this other election that just happened, the U.S. Senate special election.
Oh, really?
And even though the racist was defeated there, right, in Alabama, which is a great sign, despite the obstacles, African American women were able to come out.
Yeah, they were able to do that.
For that.
Yeah.
All right. So that's Alabama. Wow. Georgia, when I went there to do election protection, that's what I do is I set up election protection programs around the country, monitor voting rights, make sure that people's right to vote is protected and that the system is working well. So when I was called by the DNC and by the Georgia Democratic Party, my law office, which is in D.C., was called, I went to Georgia. And for the John Ossoff race, remember there was a big congressional runoff election last year?
Yes.
So when I went there, every single polling site in DeKalb County, which is a heavy African-American middle-class county, middle-class population county, every single polling site had an armed officer of the law standing in the doorway. When you go in, standing behind where people pick up their voter card, which is an electronic card, and where they turn it in.
Like, what year is this?
Right, exactly. And where is it? It's the South.
Of course.
And it's one of those pre-clearance states. So this is what happened. I was able, because I happen to be a federal law, election protection, and voting rights attorney, I was able to talk to the officers and then eventually to the sheriff's office about the Constitution, the law, history, fairness, threatening a federal lawsuit, all those things. And they backed down. They stood down. They went back to their cars, the ones that were outside, and the ones that were inside moved back. They didn't crowd around the polling site. They still had a right under law to be there, but they disarmed. So this is 2018. That was 2017. So that's Georgia and Alabama. Arizona, remember those 6-hour lines that we had? It made news across the country, right?
Yep.
We were in them.
Yeah, we were in them.
You were in it. How long did you wait?
3 hours, three and a half.
Where?
Like that.
Hours.
Phoenix?
Phoenix.
Yeah. So that was a result of the polling locations for the 2016 presidential primary. We called it a presidential preference election here. That was a reduction of 205 polling sites to 60 in the fourth most populous county in the country, Maricopa County. And that was because we were no longer under the guidelines of the federal government where you have to get pre-clearance on your election stuff here. So the legislature was able to cut back funding to the counties, and the county government decided, well, we're not going to spend as much on elections. They told the county recorder to come up with an election plan that spends less money, so she came up with a reduction in poll sites. That wouldn't have happened under pre-Shelby County v. Holder, pre that lawsuit.
That was Purcell.
That was Helen Purcell, in the former county recorder in Maricopa County for 28 years, 24 years. She was county recorder. But that was county supervisors.
It all relates then.
It all relates. So this still exists. This problem still exists, and exists in places that you wouldn't think and in ways you wouldn't think are related, and they are. But it's not just the county recorder who's complicit here. It's the county board of supervisors here, which made the plan. It's the legislature, which didn't give them enough money. It's the governor who wants to penny pinch thing, right? And it's the Secretary of State who's supposed to be your chief elections official, and didn't speak out about this. In fact, afterwards, the 6-hour lines, her office blamed voter confusion.
Yeah, they did.
For the 6-hour lines.
Like, yeah, it was our fault. We were confused about where to stand and vote.
I'm confused how she got elected in the first place. That's,
so
with that kind of attitude,
I'm not
right?
confused how she's out, though.
But we're going to get her out.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's what I want to speak about. It's funny because I always see her name whenever we have to file for a name or some sort of a document for a business. But could you speak to us a little bit about the Secretary of State, what the position is and why you're running for it?
Right. So, yes, I am. Hello, I'm running for Secretary of State of Arizona. It is the Chief Elections Office in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And for those outside Arizona, we do not have a lieutenant governor here. It's the second highest office in the state, so it's our form of lieutenant governor.
I didn't even know that.
It's not why anyone should run for this office. They should run for any office because they want to do that job and be the best person and have the best qualifications for that job, which we believe I do. It's the Chief Elections Office. But 5 of the last 9 have become governor in the state because of impeachment or resignation or death. It's Arizona. So this is what's happened. They're in charge of the elections. They're in charge it's the chief librarian and archivist. It's basically the one office that's supposed to unify everyone and represent everyone without party giving preference to anybody because of their party or any other factor about what they are. It's there to be the one unifying force. And the person that's there now is not only responsible for making that comment about voter confusion and approving the plan for the 6-hour lines here and the multi-hour lines in Cochise County, which is where we're southeastern Arizona, and in Yuma County in southwestern Arizona. Her office did not issue 200,000 election pamphlets, which are required by statute to people for 2 hotly contested propositions, that one of which barely passed, which that tells you where to go to vote, when to vote, what's on the ballot. That's voting rights information. Right? Her office did nothing about that. In fact, her office knew about it ahead of time. These are serious voting rights violations. I mean, I can go on. She thinks concerns over Russian hacking are overblown in Arizona. That was her word for it. Her office's word for it. Wrong dates for elections published on her website. Wrong number of signatures required for candidates for office.
Mm-hmm. And how long has she been?
She needs to go. 3.5 years here. She served in the legislature before and was not trained properly in this day and age about elections. This is about elections, and you need to know what you're doing, especially when you have so many forces that are trying to put up these barriers that we were talking about. And when you have a hostile foreign government that's attacked your election system, you need to know what you're doing when you're in there, and you need to actually want to do that job, not think about becoming governor, not think about building a political career. This is about a job interview and doing a job, and that's why I'm running. This is what I do, and it's an important job, and our rights have been trifled with, and we need somebody there who's really there representing people. Our tagline is, it's about your vote, right? So they should be there to represent people not their own political career.
Absolutely.
So break it down as simplest form for me about, say, John Smith that lives in Scottsdale. Why should he care about the office you're running for? What kind of impact to his life would that be if this office remains the same with the same leadership? Why should he care?
Or even somebody else of either party that's just not really making them first, because it's about you. This country, is about serving the people of the country. It's not about serving politicians. And it's not representative. Still in this day and age, 2018, it's still not the kind of representative government we should have. And everything matters when you talk about voting rights. Everything stems from everything, whether it's education, whether it's the environment, whether it's prisons, whether it's schools, whether it's your housing costs, whatever it is, it stems from your right to vote. Because you exercise the power to put these people in office, and then they administer, they're working for you, they're administering what they have in that power that you're giving them. And if you want things done with your taxes, if you want things done with with housing policy, if you want things done with your environment, the air you breathe, the water you drink, the cost of your electricity, you got to be able to voice yourself, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is at the ballot box. And the one office that's in charge of that in Arizona and in every other state is the Secretary of State's office. It is crucial right now. You have a hostile foreign government that attacked our election system. That means they attacked you and your rights.
Yes, they did.
And on top of that, you have people that are constantly putting up barriers. My dad was disabled. I have a disability. We've both needed help at different times voting. We need people that are caring about people doing that, right? And you need people that are caring about, just caring about the people that they're there to represent. That's what we need. That's what a government should be there for. So I think it matters to John Smith in Scottsdale. John Smith in Scottsdale probably waited in a 4-hour line to vote in 2016, right?
Or he left.
Or he left. We don't know how many people left.
Oh, we saw,
We saw people
We saw
leaving.
people just leaving, which is a shame.
Yeah.
Because it was hot that day.
And we saw people that were coming in during like their lunch break.
Yeah, and they
stayed in line. They had to go back to work. They couldn't place their vote because they had to go back to work or had to get the kids.
So how is this making it easier for people to vote?
Exactly.
How is this making it easier? It should be the bottom line about making it easier for people to voice themselves, no matter who they are, right? And that's why you should have automatic voter registration. You mail everyone their ballot, let them send it back. And for those who don't get their mail frequently on tribal lands or rural lands, roving vans that on election day, make an election holiday, make it an election weekend.
Right.
Make it easier for people to participate.
Right.
Make people want to participate. And that's it.
It's about them. You got to make it about them and not about electing a politician.
Absolutely.
So I'm running. We're trying. This really isn't. I'm not aiming for anything else. I just want to do a job because there's work. We've got work to do.
A lot of work in this state.
In this state, especially in this country. I mean, we're not done. We talked about the Voting Rights Act. Civil rights is not done.
Nope. Not even close.
Right. We got real problems here, and you got to put people in office that want to fix problems and work on them.
And let's see it on a national scale, not just what's going on just locally.
Right.
Yeah. No, that's absolute. I would talk about the Secretary of State that we just got in nationally, but we won't do that. We're going to just keep it on Mark Robert Gordon and what he's doing. But we want to thank you for coming here because as much as our podcast is, it's over, and it goes by really quickly.
So
It goes by really quickly, but it was a pleasure having you
I
here.
appreciate you inviting me. Can I give my website?
I was about to say, please, absolutely say
Here it is.
Post it.
www.mark.gordon.com. We need your support. There should be a nationwide people's campaign. Appreciate it. Appreciate the time here.
No doubt. Thank you. We are going to make sure we put that on there. Make sure you see it below Mark Robert Gordon's website, as well as all the information that you need in order to get in touch with him and his campaign and sign up.
I know I learned a lot.
Yeah, I learned a lot too. I mean, God, I like the Georgia, the election protection. I like that, But as usual, you can always find us at www.zodandrea.com, as well as every type of social media that you can find out there.
Exactly. Post if you liked this conversation. Post if you didn't like this conversation. Let us know. We need your feedback.
Yeah, because we always want you to subscribe and share. And you love what Mark had to say, make sure you post those comments in there and get your word, get your feedback. Because especially if you live in Arizona, this is something important that's going to be coming up. If you like how everything's been, go ahead and don't vote. Do whatever you want. Everything stay the same. But we'd rather that you actually put your voice in there. You know, change and progression is something that's a good thing.
Get up and do something.
Yeah. All right, we'll see you.
What you